Joining me now are Elizabeth May and Jonathan Pedneault. They are the co-leaders of the Green Party of Canada. It's good to see you both. Thank you for taking time out of the campaign.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Mr. Pedneault, let's start with you. This election is very different than the one I think we all expected when the calendar rolled over to 2025, and it seems to be polarizing to a binary choice in most cases between the Liberals and the Conservatives. Your party's under 3% in the polls. Where do the Greens fit into this election?
It's crucial that the response to Trump's attacks on democracy brings more democracy in Canada. And unfortunately, Trudeau had a chance to reform our electoral system. He did not. I think we now, most of us, I think, know that Mark Carney is going to form the next government. It's very likely. We will fight tooth and nail to make sure Pierre Poilievre never sits in that chair. But we want to make sure that when the Liberal wave crashes, there are people looking after Canadians in the Parliament where all too often the big parties have the whip and they will, we'd like to see more Canada in Ottawa rather than the reverse. And Green MPs have a tradition of upholding decency, honesty, and I think Canadians will want to have a chien de garde to keep them honest when they will inevitably disappoint.
So, Ms. May, I don't know if the Liberals will win. The polls today would suggest they are the favourites to do that, and almost certainly a majority at this point, which is something a lot of Canadians might feel they need to deal with, whoever wins, to deal with the threat from Donald Trump. So make the case for Green MPs in that sort of a dynamic.
Well, I would pick up where Jonathan left off. We're making the case for democracy. And a parliament with more voices, and we had 5 parties at the point of dissolution. I hope we have 5 parties in the House of Commons when we reconvene, and I hope we can pull together as Team Canada, regardless of party stripe, pull together as we were doing before the election. And I think the strength of the Green voice is that we do conduct ourselves respectfully. We have the respect of Canadians because we don't take cheap shots. We will work across party lines, and we will stand up for Canada as we will stand up for climate and make sure no Canadian gets left behind. And then in the tumult and chaos created by Trump, we need grown-ups in the room and we need grown-ups on the planet, which means we need Canada to stand strong in the world.
Last month you sent a letter, Ms. May, the party did, to Mr. Carney, Mr. Blanchet, Mr. Singh, saying let's cooperate together and essentially to stop Mr. Poilievre and the Conservatives. If the Liberals are the option to stop them, why wouldn't people just pick the Liberals in this current dynamic? What's the argument there?
Well, the argument is that if you, for one thing, depending on where you live and who's running in your riding, we don't vote for the Prime Minister. That's strangely descended into Canadian psyche, as though there's a ballot that says Mark Carney, Pierre Poilievre, Jagmeet Singh, Jonathan Pedneault, Elizabeth May. No, we vote for the MPs in our riding, and the choice is to have your local representative. Only the Greens can promise an electorate that the MP, as I do for Saanich Gulf Islands, I work for the people of Saanich Gulf Islands, as Mike Morris works for the people of Kitchener Centre. We don't have this fetishism around, that's why we're co-leaders. We don't say one person dictates all. So in a House of Commons, we do not want to move in the direction of the United States and a 2-party binary choice. Right. Not working well in the U.S. We need to keep a multi-party, respectful parliament.
Mr. Pedneault, you mentioned, you've both mentioned climate, and the importance of that in this election, but it is sliding in its importance as the issues that Canadians are most worried about right now. What are your thoughts on I don't want to say sidelining, but the diminishment of climate as a forefront issue in this campaign as people worry more about Trump, they worry about the economy, they worry about resilience, and they worry about the cost of living?
The cost of living question, I believe, is intimately connected to policies established by the Liberals and the Conservatives alike. We've had governments that have been taking our public money and pushing it into the pockets of corporations or sectors like the oil and gas sector that's owned by foreigners to the large majority. We want to shift that to make sure that Canadians can afford to live in this country, that this country can live up to its promise of not leaving anyone behind. And that's not what we've seen from previous Liberal or Conservative governments. The things I'm hearing from Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre about having to tighten our belt right now is not what I think this country needs. We need to make sure that every single Canadian has the opportunity to thrive in this country, and we need to make sure that Canadian manufacturing and the creative sector that we have in this country is well supported to face what's happening in the United States.
Well, the economic shock being unleashed, though, by the United States, whoever wins may not have a choice, right? Depending on what happens to your revenue streams and your financial situation and your core industries. Like if the auto sector goes down, oil prices keep tanking, you're going to have a revenue problem as a government.
Well,
correct?
we're really pleased to announce here tonight that we're the first party where the Parliamentary Budget Office has gotten through and published on their website the things we've asked them to cost. So, for instance,
yes, but financial projections and revenue projections in the age of Trump and tariffs and what's happening, they're very stale data very quickly.
Yes, except that we asked the question, what can a government afford to do? And that depends, as Jonathan's saying. Successive governments have shifted the tax burden from largely where it was coming on corporations decades ago to individuals. We're looking at alleviating the burden on individuals, shifting where we find our revenue. So it is relevant to know that a 0.2% tax on financial transactions will yield $54 billion to government revenues. So that means we can stop taxing people in the lowest tax brackets, remove income tax altogether. Canadians need to be protected in times of economic uncertainty. We need to protect our natural resources for Canadians' value. No,
look, I understand fairness in the tax system, but Mr. Pedneault, my point, I guess, was that if you get to an economic shock where unemployment is 10, 11, 12, 13%,
that means,
all of the economic assumptions disappear.
Which means that the government needs to invest. We've had this in the past. Right? We've had the Great Depression, government stepped in, and we invested in massive infrastructure programs throughout the country to build the Canada that we now enjoy. It is crucial that our government is able to do that. I think there's enough, and there should be enough trust in both how much knowledge and entrepreneurship there is in this country to know that Canada will continue to remain an economic powerhouse in the world. We have all the resources, we have all the talents, and none of the chaos that's south of the border. We could become an alternative to the United States when it comes to the production of critical technology that the Europeans or our Asian friends in Korea, Japan, in Australia will not want to buy from the United States because it is turning into a country that is attacking democracy, that I think a large number of people will start to fear in the same way that they fear China and Russia. And Canada could step in, but that will require significant investments from the government, and that means we need to grow our revenues. Yeah,
it's a definite inflection point. So on the revenue growth, the two leading parties are talking a lot about industrial development, critical minerals, and as conventional energy, oil and gas. The Conservatives are talking about wiping out carbon pricing essentially as it exists, like not just the consumer carbon price, the industrial carbon price. Mr. Carney not going that far with the Liberal pitch, strengthening the industrial price, but the consumer carbon price is gone. His pitch today, just starting with you, Mr. Pedneault, is you can do fossil fuel development, you can do pipelines, you can reduce the upstream emissions to make it a more lower carbon barrel, have the economic development that provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan want, and people feel left out if they don't get it, while still moving towards a net zero economy by 2050. How do you view that?
Clearly not. It's not possible. The science shows it, but more importantly, we continue to subsidize an industry that's owned at 70% by foreigners, most of them in the US. Do we want our public money to continue to stream into the pockets of Americans south of the border? I don't think so. I think we want to make sure that every single public dollar spent by the government of Canada benefits Canadians, first and foremost. Now, there's a lot of talk about how critical that sector is to the Canadian economy, but it's about on par as with tourism when it comes to the GDP percentage. So we need to make sure that we invest every single dollar in our economy. The oil and gas sector is not the future. It's going to take decades. If we look at the TMX pipeline, which is still under construction, it's going to take decades to create the kinds of pipeline that they are now trying to push through the throats of Quebecers. Quebecers don't want it. It's going to have a massive impact on protection of our territory. There are other ways to grow our economy. We are a natural, renewable energy superpower. We've got the wind, we've got the sun, we've got so many other avenues of creating cheap electricity that we can distribute throughout the country to facilitate the building of tomorrow's economy. These men, they're looking to the past to find solutions, but we know exactly why we find ourselves in the shoes we're in right now, and it's because of those solutions from the past.
So, Ms. May, just final point to you. I mean, your argument is it's not part of the economic future of the country, but what if it's important for the unity of the country? Because there is a lot of frustration in Western Canada that is being inflamed right now.
I have to say I'm so proud to be Canadian. Elbows up, guys, but elbows up and arms outstretched. We've got a role in the world to leave no one behind, not only in Canada, but when you look at the targeting of the Trump White House on the poorest of the poor African nations, and you look at the people who are being targeted, people who are being deported. But one thing I'm going to say that may surprise you, David, thanks, Donald Trump. You made us wake up and look at the country we have and look at the opportunity we have. Let's get rid of our self-inflicted limitations on our economy, like the interprovincial trade barriers. Let's pull Team Canada together with all the provinces and start talking to each other and acting and thinking like a country.
Jonathan Pedneault, Elizabeth May, thanks for stopping by. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.